Welcome to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. The boys are back. It's August 29th. This is episode 366, and it's morning. It's 7 a.m. on a Thursday. The boys are early today. The early bird gets the worm. How fitting. We just released Creighton in our top 50 countdown, and guess what, Jim? That's today's pod topic, the top 50 countdown. Some feedback so far.
That's right, Kai. A blue jay is a bird, so it's great. I think that's what you're getting to, and I'm just going to be the guy that hits people over the head with the joke rather than having any faith in our audience. This is bringing me back a little bit of nostalgia for me to 7 a.m. shows. The year we were doing our SBR betting analysis, and I was doing it 7 a.m. the entire season out on the West Coast. Really gets your juices flowing in the morning, Matthew. Every time I wake up, I'm like, I'm going to go to bed after this, go back to bed. That never happens. You get so wired being on air. I'm excited to talk to you fellas, though. A little morning episode. We got Mizzou football tonight, Kai. That's what we're moving everything around for.
Football.
Fire up, Matthew.
Yeah, I'm pumped up, Jim. I'm a morning person, just not really a morning engagement person. I'm like a morning get in my own cocoon and punch away at the keyboards in the lab. But here we are. We're gonna battle adversity. We've faced harder, Kai. We've faced tougher, and so I think we're battle scarred, battle tested. Let's go.
I actually prefer this as well. I am also a morning person. This is wonderful. Hooray, hurrah. Mizzou, beat Murray State. We will, hopefully. Good God, knock on wood.
Famous last word.
The Racers.
Yeah, 50-point favorites, not bad. Yes, today's show, Roots Roundup, of course, news and notes. And then, yes, top 50 feedback, the controversial teams we've released so far per Discord banter, teams that we feel like we're higher on, lower on, teams we'd change today. We did this voting back in like June, I want to say. There's definitely been some changing of opinions, at least for me. I know probably Matt and Jim as well. And that's it. That's really the show. Next week, I think we really get into the start of the preview process, Jim. What's our topic next week? I thought we had a nice
mid-major extravaganza.
Right. Wow, huge.
One of everybody's favorite episodes. We'll go through not the other 22 leagues anymore, Kai. Actually, it is still the other 22.
It is.
We just lost a power league, so we will go through all those.
Yes, can't wait for that. So this is our last filler episode, we'll say, of the summer. Anyways, let's move on. Jay Pitty does the music. Congratulations. Thank you, Jay Pitty. 3MW_CBB, Instagram and Twitter. Please follow us on both. And of course, subscribe to the podcast and on YouTube. Really helps us out. Even if you listen to the podcast, go ahead and hit the like button on YouTube. Subscribe there. Why not? Who cares? And download the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. If you feel inclined, leave us reviews, please. We will read them at the end of the show. We have none today. That's okay. It's okay. It's the off season. We expect that. And then we have our Discord channel. Shirley Donovan, we have teamed up with him, the burner. The links will be in the bio here. Again, our previews are rolling out. We have a lot of AMAs. Matthew did a great job on the most recent one with Tom Crean. Matt, how was it interviewing Tom Crean, your former coach?
Yeah, surreal, Kai. Tom brought me so many fond memories during my glory days of college. Those delicate, formidable years of my life. Yes, Tommy was there to help shape that. So it was just more of a tribute from my end, Kai. But I hope the people enjoyed it. I hope everyone liked it.
Formidable or formative?
Formidable. Well, they were very formidable years, but formative, yes. And I was formidable in my formative years, exactly.
Yeah, we've had some great interviews so far. Tom Crean, Greg Campy, to name a few. Possibly another big-name coach coming up. We'll save that one. Brian Wardle is coming up. Bradley's head coach next week. Brian Wardle. And then Eric Reynolds, most likely. St. Joe's player coming up on the 9th, September 9th. So, again, subscribe there. The links are in the bio, the YouTube channel, and the podcast information. That's it. That's enough. Let's get into Roots Roundup. News and notes time. Jim, round us up.
Yeah, not a ton to get to here in Roots Roundup, Kai. But before we do, we got to pay one more bill. Shout out to CBB Analytics. Matthew, a website we love, we consume daily, constantly as we write our previews, stats, information, all kinds of it at CBB Analytics.
Yeah, Jim, it runs the gamut of individual to team stats, advanced, basic, slicing and dicing any which way you want to. And my favorite part of it is how you can look at the different context and situations of all these team and individual stats. Great for fans who want to know a little bit more about their players coming in from the portal this offseason. Great for coaches thinking about potentially scouting, assessing players for the next portal cycle, and great for just basically everyone, fans, coaches, teams, players alike. A 30,000-foot view of all the numbers, and with new features just rolled out. It continues to roll out just new bells and whistles every day to add on to what he already has. But really, it's becoming, as you've used KenPom, for example, over the years, you become so adept at navigating throughout the site. The more you use CB analytics, the easier and more intuitive it gets. It's like second nature. And then once you're sort of in that level of adoption, it's just basically like a crutch. And that's where I am with it. So, and if you're tuning into our previews, you'll see it littered throughout our stuff there. Shot charts, on-off stuff. It's got it all. Sign up with the promo code WEAVE, WEAVE, for a $40 off subscription. Coaches, contact us directly for a secret access to the holy grail of the pro tier, which we have, by the way. It's awesome. It has everything. It's amazing. But yeah, that's it.
Lovely, lovely, Matthew. Well said. The big news, fellas, in college basketball and really college sports is that UConn may be leaving the Big East again, potentially headed for the Big 12. This stinks out loud. Football-based realignment is dumb. UConn is a Big East squad. God, that's where they have all their success. That's when they've won. Why? It's dumb. Stop prioritizing football when you suck at it.
It's really weird. Yeah, and you mentioned UConn is not good at football. How do their fans feel, Jim? The fans really wanted to be back in the Big East. They constantly say they're a Big East team. I don't know what their opinions are on this. However, the Big 12, I mean, my God, if this actually happens, which I think it's like 2026 or maybe next year if it does, what a league. I mean, it's the most insane conference in America.
Yeah, the basketball would be outrageous. I mean, we were already making a big deal of adding Arizona to Kansas. Then you have coast to coast, basically, with UConn in there too. That would be ludicrous. I wonder if it would impact Dan Hurley / Andrea Hurley's desire to stay there long term. Yeah. Be applying the trade in the Big 12 instead of out in the East Coast with similarly minded programs. But we'll see. We'll have to wait and find out on that. See if any other NBA teams come calling, whether that changes his mind. Nothing to mention in recruiting, much to your pleasure, both of you two. Smile. No recruiting news to mention here. Matthew, we do have to sadly mention an injury, though. Gonzaga's Steele Venters, who missed last season with a torn ACL, recently announced that he is out this season with a torn Achilles. You've seen this happen a few times in sports. Clay Thompson, I think, went ACL, then Achilles. J.K. Dobbins in football went ACL and then Achilles. This kind of double up, maybe if you try to come back too quickly. I don't know. Venters tore it over a year ago, or right about a year ago. I don't want to analyze why, Matt, but how does this affect Gonzaga and maybe pour one out for Mr. Venters?
Yeah, my reaction was more just like bummer for Steele. Like I was just really excited to watch him play. I think Vicini did a whole breakdown of him like over a year ago, over the summer, of like all of the crazy shots he made, like a clip of a Synergy compilation of his just crazy shot making. And like it happened this year, and I'm just like bummed I don't get to see him play. But like as a team for Gonzaga, I sort of ended up being like, he'll be fine, right? Like I didn't bother me that much. It should have bothered me more, Kai. It didn't. So that's a testament to the depth that the Zags have, I think.
Yeah, I just feel bad for him. Yep. Gonzaga will be fine. They'll prevail. Their ceiling takes a small hit, I think, but it's not like I'm not moving them down the rankings, I'll say.
Yeah, last year when they lost Venters, it was like, oh man, panic mode at guard. Mm-hmm. But this year they went and got Caleb Battle. Matt, your boy Emmanuel Innocenti. He's not the same kind of player at all as Venters, but he's a guy that can roll out there on that spot. And they have the breaking case of emergency, pull the red shirt off Braden Smith if they really need another guard. Now, he is also not the same player as Venters, but if they really needed to, they could pull that red shirt off the Colgate transfer the same way they did with Andrew Nemhard when he was allowed to play immediately. Remember, he was going to sit out a year. He ended up coming in and being a big piece for them. So I think Gonzaga is in fine shape without Venters. We just hope he heals up and eventually gets to play basketball again if he wants to, if he so chooses. Suspensions and dismissals. I don't even know, Kai, to call this a dismissal. Whether Zayden High of UNC left the team voluntarily or was booted. There's some rumors that he would maybe return in the future. it just seems like a whole mess for a team that was already lacking front court depth and was kind of, heavily reliant on Jalen Washington and Van Allen Lubin sliding to center. Is Aiden High no longer even an option for Hubert Davis?
Yes, strange, Jim. I wonder why. I don't know. UNC, I am not super confident in this season. We just ranked them 15th in our top 50 countdown. I think a lot of people thought that was a bit low with RJ Davis coming back. We can get into that a little bit later, but this hurts them a bit. Kind of like Venters, I'm not rushing to move them down the ranks, but I think it might hurt their ceiling just a tad.
It
I
feels
wonder if they
closer
knew this would. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
to losing Ventures last year for Gonzaga, like when they didn't have a bunch of other alternatives. And yes, he, maybe not going to be a star, Matt, but they don't have a ton of other alternatives to High.
I wonder if they knew this was coming with the Claude signing when they got from Georgia Tech. Again, he's sort of I would think a bench piece, but I think High was going to be a bench piece for this team too. So maybe they're prepared for it. I still think they feel like they're then up front pretty well documented that they missed on a lot of key big guys in the portal. And yeah, that was sort of the pushback I think that we gave to those who thought we had them too low, among other reasons, very well thought out and rational reasons.
Claude is a good point. He is a nice, reserve there for them. And maybe that's why High left. It's like, why are you recruiting another bench big who's probably better than me? How dare you? So,
are there Claude brothers? Are we missing a family connection between the other Claudes out there in hoops?
I don't think Tyjon does.
A common last name, but I confuse them all. Sorry, it's a last name that's always in the confusion matrix for me.
Okay, all right. Other random news and notes before we get to the top 50 feedback. Cooper Flagg signs a shoe deal with New Balance, and folks, we're going to go on the ground in the field to our shoe expert, Kai McEwen, and he looks disgusted.
Gross.
Looks like he smelled a fart.
Gross. I mean, sure, New Balance is fine for normal casual wear, but for basketball, get out of here. This is not a basketball company. Every team that's sponsored by New Balance in college, I laugh heartily at, Matthew. So yeah.
Hey,
Cooper
Nike was a running company until Michael came in. So I think this is the impact trajectory we could see. That 2.0 of Michael Jordan.
He wants to blaze his own path. I think Kawhi is signed to New Balance, so that's kind of like the
New Balance is cool now, I think.
Flags
I don't think it's cool, but I think other people think it's cool.
It's cool from a casual sense. It'll never be cool in the basketball sense. I'm fine putting that down on paper.
Wow. Kai, is it cooler than Anta? Klay Thompson's
brand? I mean, Anta is not. I don't even think about Anta. I don't even think about you.
What is that? The Mad Men theme? I don't.
Yeah, I don't think about you at all.
Yep, there you go. Perfect. So, suck on that, Anta. We're taking shots at you here on the 3-Man Weave podcast. The other bit of news: Arkansas versus Baylor announced November 9th in Dallas. Again, I wish this was played in Waco or Fayetteville, but this is a week 1 game, opening week, big time college basketball. We're excited about that. Both Calipari and Scott Drew especially typically like to challenge their teams early and often. So Matthew, we're happy to see this. I mean, this is going to be a table setter for, or maybe a replacement for Calipari's typical Champions Classic game that he gets early on. Now he's getting Baylor instead.
Yeah, again, more non-conference great games. I don't know what else. There's just like a no-brainer for college basketball as we continue to battle with the college football, the tug of war with college football. I think we're losing that one, but it's good that we need to continue to punch back. We need to punch back with some bigger non-conference games. That's step 1 of like 100, but that's a good step.
Also saw the schedule officially came out for the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas. Boy, I want to get excited about it, Kai, but I think I'm going to start calling it the Participation Trophy Tournament with the fact that it's not bracketed and it's just, all right, everybody play, get your $1 million and leave.
So it's not like an actual tournament setting, like a bracket?
No, there's just 2 groups of 4. They play round robin and then they leave Vegas. And it's weirdly Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday.
And everybody gets a money grab.
Everybody gets
money. It's just a money grab, right?
Yeah, everybody gets $1 million. There might be an incentive for like if you win your side of it, but every team gets $1 million for going.
Who's throwing this around? Who's throwing around $1 million to each team? This is crazy to me.
Yeah,
this is
very weird.
Again, I said money laundering before. This is nuts. I don't understand the motivation. It's just big dollars, Jim. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think Kevin Sweeney had a tweet that said like skipping Thursday and Friday so that you can compete with college football Saturday.
Genius.
While already paying $8 million extra in expenses for tournaments that rarely make even $1 million profit. Just brilliant. I cannot imagine this thing lasting more than a year or two. It just seems like a money pit. But hey, I'll enjoy the games while they're there. It's Alabama, Notre Dame, Rutgers, Oregon, Creighton, San Diego State. There's a whole bunch of like tournament rematches in there. Creighton and San Diego State rematching, Oregon and Creighton rematching from last year's double overtime NCAA tournament game. So they will be fun. Houston's in the mix there. Good games. Just I wish there was a bracket, but maybe that's part of the incentive. If you go there, you know which games you're getting. Sure. Are they Q1? Are they Q2? Etc. Which sometimes with a bracket, that's blind luck. And if you lose your first game, you're screwed. But we'll move on, fellas. Let's get into the top 50 feedback. Kai, that ends the roundup. Kicking it back over to you.
Let's do it. Fellas, as I said at the top of the show, today's theme is top 50 feedback. So we've released 38 teams. We released number 12 today. That was Creighton. 11 more to go. Top 10 coming. What have we done wrong in the rankings? Let's start with...
I've done a lot wrong.
Okay.
I've done a lot wrong.
Oh, hand up for Matt already. I love this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew.
I just wanted to lead off. I had a postmortem of my rankings. This week, I've really dug into them a little more. I've tried to start to put pen to paper on some of my ratings and rankings and just thoughts in general. I'm trying to play a little catch up here. We're in late August, and I'm just like, I think I missed that one. I think I missed that one too.
Do you want to maybe explain your theory of time as a flat circle, rankings are flat sort of thing? Because you get a lot of flack for where you rank teams, but you have them pretty close together in reality.
I think we all do, right?
Yes.
But the general premise is an annoying one and a lame one, and one I think people roll their eyes at. But I think that premise is actually even stronger this year, ironically, because it's actually flatter this year. But there are so many teams clustered in like the 15, 20 to 40 to 50 range. And that sounds like a big range. Like to think that, the number 20 team is way better than the number 50 team. It's like, actually, no, those teams are pretty damn close. And this year, especially as I've kind of gone through, there feels like there's a lot of teams in that's like as competitive and as clustered together as ever. Like the Big Ten I just finished going through all those yesterday. I have like a 5-point rating between the best and the worst team, or sorry, 6-point rating between the best and the worst team. That's probably a little too flat, but just the idea that like there's a lot of Big Ten discussion going around. Like I think the worst team in the Big Ten this year is probably, take your pick. Is it Penn State, Minnesota?
I think Minnesota's generally regarded as the worst one. Like
Minnesota will host the best team. Insert Michigan State, Indiana, Illinois. Who do you think it is, Kai?
Purdue.
Purdue. So I think that game will be a coin flip type game. Like every time you go on the road this year in the Big Ten, it'll be a coin flip game for you, no matter if you're the best team in the conference or middle of the pack. So it's a very clustered together thing. So I tried to really dig in to have stronger takes on these rankings, Kai, but man, it just feels like every team's really, really close. And maybe that's just a function of like we don't actually know anything about these teams because they're all so new.
Yeah, Matt, I'll do you one better. My Big Ten spread is 5.5.
5.5. I'm saying 6, literally. Like I have Indiana or Penn State hosting Purdue, whatever. It's like Penn State's favored potentially at home. Almost.
I have yet to do my ratings. I guarantee you, I will have a much bigger spread than 6.
I'm just being too generous. I wrote the league, so I gave everybody too nice of a rating.
Yeah,
I like every team in the Big Ten. I like every team.
Hard to pick the top.
I like every team in that league.
So the controversy, I think, mostly around the fringes of the top 50, like the borderline teams are always going to be kind of like a surprise. Oh, who'd they include? Who'd they not include? Providence, San Diego State, SMU, SLU, USC were teams that kind of just made the cut for us. I would say SMU got a lot of flack. Surprise from the collective that we had them in the top 50. Looking back, I might have bumped them down a little bit, Matt. I just think this team is really, really talented. I got a little gung-ho on SLU, but we can talk about that in a bit. Matthew, of those 5 teams, who do you want to defend and who do you want to kick out?
I feel fine defending SMU. I maybe it was a little high, but I do think this team will be pretty good. I think defensively, it's an underrated team. I think in general, sometimes if you're breaking down these rosters, I have to like pinch myself every time before I close the book and move to the next, I have to think, oh wait, defense is part of this, right? Like,
right.
Do I
think
this team's good defensively?
Often ignored.
Exactly. But I think SMU's defense, not that Andy Enfield has a sterling track record of producing great defenses, but I think personnel-wise, that should be a good defensive team.
Definitely the most controversial in the Big Ten was Illinois. Illinois, number 42. Bart Torvik has them at 20. It's possible we're low. Matthew ranked them really low. Number 56 in the country. 15th in the Big Ten. Matt, if after doing your Big Ten rankings,
Yeah.
are they still 15th in the Big Ten?
No, they are. Let's see. 12th
12th still.
to
Okay.
fit. Oh, sorry. Well, so no, I have 12, 13, 14, 15. I have four teams with the same rating. So yeah, actually they are technically 15th. The 12th if you're sorting, if I was A and you sorted by alphabetical, I guess. But
Jim, the thing about Illinois, everyone's kind of like, you're disrespecting Underwood. You're not giving him the coaching bump like you do for all the other coaches. We might be a little low at 42, but I remember Illinois fans being frustrated with Underwood several times during his coaching tenure. It seems like it's just based off last year, this ire.
Yeah, and obviously they got some tough draws in NCAA tournaments and stuff, but we don't really base our opinions on coaches on the NCAA tournament.
At all.
I think the 22-23 year was not good. Like,
No.
I think they underperformed their talent. I think finishing a 9 seed, having a bunch of off court or chemistry concerns. Basically what I'm saying is he's not invincible. I think he's a very good coach. I think he's top 3 in the Big Ten probably. Where I think Illinois fans are coming from, Kai, and what I sort of gather is they are very high in the talent level of the team. I believe it has like 4 of the top 10 recruits in the history of the program, or in the last 25 years.
Really?
When you factor in Kylan Boswell's recruiting ranking, Trey White's recruiting ranking, Morris Johnson, Kasparis, Jakusionis. So there's a little bit of context with it. Like, is Trey White really a top 50 recruit? Now that we've seen 2 years of evidence of what he actually is Kylan Boswell all the way up that high when we now know he cannot get to the rim, even if he's being guarded by a brick? So there's some limitations I think that we've seen in those guys that now that we have a sample size on them, but it feels to me, Kai, like if you look at it with rosy view, there's enough pieces there to be like, well, that guy hits and that guy hits and that guy hits. And oh my God, this team has a high ceiling. And I do agree they're high variance, but I think we're probably on the lower end of the bell curve for them where we're at right now. But man, I don't think it's like automatic. How can you not have them top 25 crazy to be where we are?
Jim, how much do we think Bart's talent metric is awesome? I mean, I know there's probably holes in it, but
I do not.
Illinois number 1, Indiana number 2, Purdue number 3, actually, in the talent ranking. Guys, there is a little feather for
I just don't know how the talent thing works. I don't understand. Because
this was discussed in the Discord. I think it was
Purdue doesn't
we're trying to get Bart on
recruits
for an AMA, by the way. But I think it's just recruit. I have a lot of 4-stars, like a deep bevy of 4-star pedigree guys, which I think I assume in Bart's algo, there's probably points given to depth of high end, maybe not elite, but high end caliber talent. I ended up revising this close to like 45, 40. So I was probably too low in the mid 50s, no question. But I just feel like the general consensus from this narrative, the team is just every outcome is like the 10 out of 10 upside thing. Like, I'm pretty convinced that KJ is going to be great. I'm becoming more convinced that Riley is going to be better than I thought. But like, man, like those are just when you bank on, when you don't factor in any of the downside or underachievement risk at all into the overall weighted average projection, it's just like, that's a little short-sighted.
I just don't like when you can't point to one guy and say that guy is definitely going to be really good. Definitely. Yeah. No question. Right. Yep. They don't really have that. It's all like, we think he'll be good. And that's kind of the idea behind the ranking, I think. Staying in the Big Ten, surprisingly, Washington is there. 43 for us. We're high on this team. Bart has him 73. For me, Jim, I gave him a big Danny Sprinkle bump. I think that guy's awesome, their head coach, and him over Hopkins is just a huge upgrade. And Great Osibor is one of the best players, not just big men, not just guys in the Big Ten, players in the country. So I'm comfortable with our ranking of Washington.
Yeah, it's kind of, it could be seen as a reach. Just like I said, they're 73rd in Bart. I wrote that in our outline here. But I kind of like what's around him. It's moldable. That there's a little more experience and less projection with some of the guys. But there is definitely concerns in shot creation from the backcourt. Their point guard rotation has some concerns with Zoom Diallo maybe being relied on, or a couple mid-major point guards that are transferring up. So I can see being negative here, Kai. This is like the opposite of Illinois. We're probably in the higher end of the bell curve of outcomes where we're at with 43. And then those two get right next to each other, so they instantly get compared. And that's when the flack happens, the feedback.
Yes, Virginia, of course. Everyone hates Virginia. because of their style of play. They did not finish very well. Last year, they were 68th in KenPom, despite finishing very highly in the ACC. But they were a top 10 defense last year. You could argue they don't have quite the same personnel this year to be as good defensively. I trust in Tony Bennett's system, Matthew. I think this team is a lock to be a top 15 defensive team, at least in the country. And I don't really see them being outside the top 200 offensively again. So I'm fine with having them. I think we had them in the 40s. I'd say that's pretty fair for Virginia, despite their lack of beautiful, quote-unquote, basketball that most people think.
They were 72nd in offense 2 years ago and 25th in defense. That's when they got the 4 seed, lost to Furman. I think everyone thought they were probably overseeded. They were not really a 4 seed in terms of caliber. I think this team can be as good as that team, right? Which sort of puts them in the same projection realm. I hated being the high person on Virginia and Wisconsin. Like, I'm sort of just like, it's not fun to like vehemently defend those teams. Like, yeah, I'm jazzed about the Virginia and Wisconsin roster and Cam Hunter and I mean, I can't, who's on Virginia? I mean, can't even play on Virginia right now. I'm so
Day-Day?
tired. Day-Day
Day-Day
Ames,
Jalen Worley, TJ Power, Blake Buchanan, breakout softball. Yeah, Matt, I would move Virginia down personally.
Right.
I'm concerned. I was the low guy.
I don't know. I just think the Bennett thing's going to be. It feels like there's rejuvenation in Tony Bennett this year, which I'm kind of buying into. Like, he was sort of like kind of disheartened by how things were going, and now he got some more money coming in, and now his roster actually looks decent. I just feel like it's going to be a little bit of a Virginia, you forgot about us, we're still a thorn in your side ACC type of thing.
Yeah, I could see it being more the year where like they're super competitive in the ACC, but they're still only like 60th in KenPom, which they've done a couple times.
Yeah,
now.
which they've done.
So maybe it's more that kind of season.
2 teams finish us off for the controversialness. 2 teams one high, one low. Texas 28 for us. One of the great Discord chatters in the Discord had him as high as 10th in his preseason rankings. They're 11th in BART. Talent is clearly there. We love the Indiana State guys. Jim, why do you think we're so low on Texas? Are you comfortable with them at 28?
Yeah, I don't love the fit. And I think if you're going based off what last year's guys, like how productive they were, yeah, I think the Indiana State guys looking unbelievable because they're in the perfect system, playing the perfect roles, a team with no bench. So they were playing a million minutes. Now they're going to have to kind of sort out how to play at a higher level against better competition consistently. I don't know that they're actually going to play those guys as good role players. I think Arthur Kaluma is going to end up, moving himself up the totem pole in terms of usage, which I don't like at all. Matthew, I almost moved Texas down because I think it hurt the fit. I liked the fit of the roster before Kaluma came along, and then just kind of cascaded down the roster in a bad way. And it's just, I don't believe Terry will maximize it. So I have them right around where they were last year, which was a pretty talented team too. And I feel okay about that.
Yeah, I really like the roster. Like, I feel like I had the same internal conflict 2 years ago or last year with Terry. It's like, man, I love this roster. Like, how much am I going to bet against that? I think the Indiana State guys, while they may not be as awesome in the new system, I think they're going to be like winning culture guys, and like Kendall Weaver, a guy we love, like just those 3 players being winning utility dudes in a team that has some prolific scorers with Pope and Mark and Kaluma. Trey Johnson, I don't know. I feel like it's like one of the top 10 5-stars. Like, no one's even mentioned. Like, I forget he's on this team, but yes, he's probably going to start because he's a top 10 5-star prospect. I think top 5, right? Like number 5th,
like 7ish.
He's like one of the guys I have the strongest opinion on of that top 10. Like,
okay,
he's a shooter who doesn't get to the basket at all, but he makes tough shots.
Okay, so kind of like an Ace Bailey, a poor man's Ace Bailey of sorts in a way.
Yeah. Like, will those tough shots go in? Will he be taking a lot of bad shots because he has the green light? I don't know. We'll see.
Likely. No, we got this one right. This team's very talented. They're not going to like blow to like a top 5. I don't think like national title front runner because they're that talented. I just don't see that.
Yeah, we're still a little skeptical on Rodney Terry. Done a fine job, but they were 25th last year. That team is way better than that on paper. So I feel fine with this.
Hey, Caden Shedrick, stay healthy.
Yeah.
Shedrick.
Last one here, Shedrick, I think.
Okay, sorry.
I've heard announcers say both, to be fair.
There's a lot of dual name pronunciations. We need to get that ironed out this year. Sorry, go ahead, Kai.
Michigan 26 was controversial, mostly from the Big Ten fans, seeing Illinois down at like 42, what we had in Michigan 26. You could argue that we're making some projections here with Michigan's roster for sure, Matt, but Dusty May, we believe in him, and I that's not throwing shade at Underwood. I think Michigan's roster is just a little bit more, we'll say, I know more what they are in terms of players versus the projection I have to do with Illinois when comparing those two teams.
Yeah, I feel really good about Michigan. I think Michigan and Illinois both I think we'll know what they are by Big Ten play. That's why it'd be a lot of these discussions. It would be fun to rekindle closer to the start of conference play, especially for the Big Ten, SEC, Big East type stuff, because it is just such a who the heck knows. But I feel pretty good about Michigan being a better team than Illinois the other day, Jim, both early and middle and late.
I
The
think
roster's
Illinois
really
got
good.
a higher ceiling.
You higher ceiling Michigan. I think I buy that, but I think the odds I hit that are like multiple degrees lower. So I just think Michigan ends up being the better team.
Yeah, Michigan, I think, has the higher floor. Where I think the defense is going to be good. I know people are really worried about the Golden and Wolf fit. I don't think they'll play a ton of Golden and Wolf together. I also think it's okay to have two shot blockers on the floor if you're not massively worried about their mobility. And I'm not massively worried about both those guys' mobility. And I think they've got on-ball dogs in the backcourt, Kai. I think they've got really good defenders there. Reuben Jones, Trey Donaldson, pretty rock solid on that end. I just think it's a steady group of talent, lacks a little bit of ceiling because there isn't like a popping NBA type perimeter player. And Illinois could end up having that if we're comparing directly there. But yeah, I'm okay with having Michigan ahead of them right now just because I feel a little bit more certain about where they'll be.
Yes, well said, Jim. Let's go into highs and lows for each person here. We don't need to belabor every single team, but we do want to point out where we kind of strayed from each other in rankings, and we're not all groupthink here. The three-man we think alike. We certainly do. We've been guilty of assimilating, I suppose, in our rankings. But we had some calls this off season. We can start with Matt. Matt's usually the most controversial of the group. So
free thinking.
So his high teams that we want to point out here, he has Xavier at 10, much to the joy of Xavier fans in the Discord. Texas A&M at 12, Louisville 21, and Memphis at 24. Sort of Matt's bold high team calls. Matthew, any of those four you feel very strongly about? You maybe push or pull back a bit on? The world is yours.
Yeah, Memphis. Maybe I went a little too crazy there. I probably glossed over it's not super deep. There are some fit question marks with that team. I think the talent's really good, though. I think it's the pushback from Memphis is rooted in the fact that people don't realize that they actually are a really good team the last few years, just really inconsistent. And I think that kind of distorts what the perception of them was. So I don't feel like them 24 is not like they're going to get way better than they were last year. They were probably, like I said, I think it could be as good as they were last year. That probably equates to a fringe top 25 ranking. Just take away that stupid little rut they had after Tomlin joined the team. And then A&M, the other one, it's like there's a misnomer that I think this team has like a ceiling, and maybe they do. But I think this team kind of broke through that ceiling a little bit with Obaseki being an absolute star down the stretch last season. And they bring back a million older dudes. And while, again, you could argue the experience continuity has a ceiling, I think that it could push you into a slight tier above where you have been. And they've been sort of in that fringe top 25-ish range. At least they were playing like that down the stretch. I think they can take a slight leap above. So Buzz is good.
Better be good because they are playing an absurd.
Schedule's nuts.
I think it's
nuts.
probably the hardest one in the country.
A&M is really?
No, Memphis.
Oh, Memphis. I was going to say, yeah, Buzz isn't usually.
Memphis has got Ole Miss, Mississippi State at home, at Clemson, at Virginia, 3 of UConn, Michigan State, North Carolina, Iowa State, Auburn, Dayton. They're in Maui, so they got 3 Maui games. Missouri to open the season, playing San Francisco in San Francisco. They're at UNLV. They're only like bye-ish games. Are Arkansas State, Louisiana Tech, and Ohio. All of them could be good. Like that schedule is absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for context, so Jim and I were 49 and 50 on Memphis. So Matt was way higher on Memphis, and I agree, their talent's really good. And to Matt's point, if you throw away last year's 76, they've been right around the 24 range 3 years prior. Now, they had like 5-star talent in those years, but I still think they could probably get to that point. I'm fine with having them 41, which is where they ended up in our countdown. They could definitely be that good. Just Penny Hardaway. I don't think he maximizes his talent as much as I'd love him as a player. Louisville, Matthew, and again, I did say we're not going every team, but I do want to touch on Louisville because this was also kind of a controversial team. Both sides. Some people think we're too low at 34. Some people think we're way too high. Jim and I were pretty lockstep in our ranking. We had them 45 and 41, whereas Matthew had them all the way up to 21. You're a big Pat Kelsey guy. That's like your mantra right now is Pat Kelsey. They're just a lot of mid-major all-stars to me. I still like them as a team. I just don't know if they have a huge ceiling this season.
Yeah, I just remember looking at this team 2023 Pat Kelsey's 2023 Charleston team, right? The year they broke through, lost to San Diego State in the tournament before San Diego State went to the title game. Like that roster had a couple of D2 guys. Like that roster looked like nothing impressive on paper. And then it was like, oh shit, this team's awesome. I think Kelsey is just such a vintage do more with less guy. And let me say, it's more of a do more with more in terms of quantity. He's just so good at weaponizing depth. That's like his thing. His system plays to that. The way coaches plays to that. And I think this roster is like perfectly set up to replicate that. Now you could argue the year one thing, there might be like a system turbulence factor. We talked about this with Josh Schertz. You know, his first couple months at Indiana State, you could tell they ran his actions. People were throwing like backdoor cuts the wrong way and passes were going into the stands where they shouldn't be. Like it take all to get on the same page. But I think ultimately this is going to be a really good team. I don't see how it's not good. Not top 25 good.
I can see how it's not 25, but that's okay.
I can see a lot of ways it's not top 25 good.
Let's keep cycling through highs. We'll circle back with lows. So my high teams, Purdue at 8. That raised some eyebrows yesterday. Arkansas at 14. Michigan State 23. St. Louis at 38. Yep, that's a reach. I totally agree. And West Virginia at 46. Kind of crazy. West Virginia at 46. I wrote this preview, and I was like, I'm high. I love DeVries. I love Tucker DeVries. I think they're going to be really competitive. Top 50, though, maybe Jim was a stretch too far for me at West Virginia.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get there with you because I think West Virginia could be pretty feisty and like very much a throw-out last year. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. There's one guy back from that roster. The coaching staff's completely changed. DeVries won like 25 games every single year at a school that never wins 20 games. So I have a really high belief in him. And they've got a couple, Javon Small is a proven Big 12 player, albeit for not a good team. I think there's enough you could say would work there. I'm surprised that, like, I don't know, Matt, if you compare them side by side to Louisville, like Louisville's got mid-major guys and third and fourth best players from good teams, Chucky Hepburn and Javon Hadley, etc. Is this West Virginia team that far from Louisville? I don't know. I don't think it's
no,
crazy
but I think there's
far.
a gap. There's a gap.
Sure, but is it 21st to 80th?
No, it's not. It's a fair point. I will say the thing with West Virginia, too, to Kai's defense for ranking them pretty highly, this is one of those teams where it's, look at the roster, it's like, but then it's like, wait, no, pinch yourself defense. This team will absolutely defend, and I think that gives them a higher floor than I think the sort of, am I fired up about Sincere Harris and Toby Akani and Jaden Stone on offense? Like, not really, but I think this team will defend, and there might be some ugly rock fights, but I think they're going to squeeze out a few wins that, Drake does this in the Valley, man. They won some ugly games in the Valley when they weren't always scoring at a higher rate. They had some injuries, etc. I think DeVries kind of has that optionality in how he can win games because of how well they defend. Just like gap defense, positionally, they're awesome.
Yeah, so SLU, I mentioned, had him 38. Indiana State finished 38 last year. Is this team better than Indiana State? I like this team. Robbie Avila and Isaiah Swope coming over from Indiana State. Josh Schertz, in my opinion, one of the top coaches in the country. I like the pieces around them, honestly. The more I look at SLU's roster, the more I'm like, no, never mind. I'm okay. I really hope A.J. Casey kind of does something in college. He was a pretty high recruit. He didn't do much at Miami the last 2 years, but I'm still going to probably put my stake in the ground and say SLU's going to be a top 40 team this season.
I like how you frame that, though. Are they better than last year, Jim? Like, that's tough.
No. There's no Conwell. There's no, like, holy crap,
Kobe
perimeter slasher. Like, Jimerson can shoot like crazy, but I don't know if they're going to have the same kind of, like, rim pressure that they had last year off the glass.
I'll save Arkansas. That's in another section. Purdue. Purdue at 8. Here's my defense, guys. 3 starters back from the national title team. 5 guys back that played in that game. Internal development is like Matt Painter's thing. Guys always step up and get better. I think they have a ton of upside with Heidi and Colvin, rising sophomores. Not many teams in the country are returning a third-year starter at the 1 and the 2 within the program, not transfers. Lawyer and Smith coming back for their third year, started freshman and sophomore year. That is a huge, huge thing in my opinion. And then Kaufman-Wren, I think, can be a serviceable 5-man in this system. There's lots of like for me on Purdue. I'm totally okay sticking my neck out and saying they're top 10.
I think like almost everything you spoke to besides Colvin and Heidi is high floor for me.
Sure.
Rather than high ceiling. Like it 9 straight years in the top 25. We belabored that in the Discord. Matt Painter just lives in the top 25. I would be flabbergasted if this team isn't top 25 again. I just think there's enough consistency and enough pieces back to keep it stable. The ceiling is all right. Can we get there with Colvin and Heidi? I like them both a lot. But then, yeah, can they get rim protection from Jacobson or Berg and that post scoring? Can Trey Kaufman-Wren be a featured scoring option? I think he had a 92 O rating when Zach Edey was off the floor last year. Again, smallish sample because Edey played a lot, but can he find a way to juice that? That's where you look for the upside, Matt, and can they get into that top 10 where Kai has them versus 18th where I had them?
Yeah, like the last year, Painter wasn't that good, which I think it was 2015. They were 44th, still a 9 seed, still went to the tournament. That's Purdue's floor, by the way, is a 9 seed. This team, like, they were pretty young, and it was kind of a newish team, and so you could draw parallels to that. So, and what they had this year, which is, it's not really a newish team, but it's a young-ish team, again, on a relative scale, and so you can maybe see where it could go awry in that regard, but I think that's just such a reach. I don't know. I'm pretty confident that Miles Colvin's going to rock. I'm fairly confident we're going to be like, oh yeah, this guy's really good. Why did we not take him that seriously? He didn't like really wow us in the postseason last year. I think we all kind of were hoping to see like a little bit of a jolt to kind of help those guards a little bit. He didn't quite sub up to that. It felt very much like the Edey show, and the rest of the team kind of shrank around him, which is probably why people are so anti-Purdue this season without Edey. But I just think a year of the offseason, that's gonna this system will be refreshed. This team will be refreshed. They're gonna be fine.
That's the point. Last year was all the plan is Edey. That's the plan. This season, this offseason, it's we know there's no Edey. Let's make a new plan, and then that's kind of the difference. It's like when he's off the floor last year, it's a problem because that is our game plan. Now it's not the case. It's a totally different game plan. Okay, Jim, your teams: St. John's at 14, Rutgers at 20. TCU 31. I threw in Pitt there at 38. You can throw that back out if you want. Defend yourself.
St. John's of the defense. I think that's like the big thing. I think the offensive fit questions are semi-valid, but I'm almost ready to board bet St. John's top 10 Ken Pom defense just based on the personnel they have, the athleticism and Patino on the sideline. Last year, I overstepped my bounds there, trying to say their defense is going to rock with Jordan Dingle playing a bunch of minutes and Chris Ledlam having his feet in stone and cement at the 4 spot. But this year, I feel like they've got the pieces with Scott, Kadari Richmond, kind of a 2-headed monster at center with Zuby and Iwachukwu. I think that team's going to be terrific defensively. Yeah, RJ Lewis is a great defender. So that I feel like they've got high floor and some upside if they do solve some of the offensive spacing concerns. So love St. John's. Rutgers, I might have been too high on over-indexing on the freshmen. I think the defense will be really good too. I think people are throwing so much flack at their center position.
Yeah.
I think Agbole is good.
I think so too.
Will be good. He came in late last year, was hurt, so, didn't really have like the lead up of practices to get ready. He is a freak, 6'10", athletic, mobile, raw offensively, but I think he'll be very valuable defensively, and they've got a bunch of length and size that they can figure out there. Now the offense could be herky-jerky, but I'm trusting the freshmen. I think they're both good. TCU, probably too high. We can talk about them in a little bit. I think I stand by Pitt. I am suddenly a Jeff Capel guy, Matthew, after throwing so many stones at him. You're muted, Matt. You're still muted. But after throwing a lot of stones at him, but he's figured it out the last 2 years, and I think the template is there again for them to be rock solid.
Jalen Lowe, special player, folks. Special. player.
Hey, still just one top 40 finish for Capel at Pitt, which was last year. So maybe he's figured it out. Maybe
I think he's capable of a second. I think I've made that exact pun on the pod before.
Jim, I thought I was too high on Rutgers as well, even where I put him. But I agree. People, and this is Matt's point, you're ignoring defense, and they're going to be really good on defense again. It's Steve Peichel, and Ogbole is going to be fine at the 5, in my opinion, in that system. So I think the floor is really high.
Yeah, some feedback that people said Ace Bailey's like the worst defender they've ever seen. It's like, I don't know. A 6'10" athlete under Steve Peichel, I have a hard time seeing him suck.
I watched Mackenzie Mbako last year, so that's the worst defender I've ever seen in the non-con.
I don't like Ace Bailey getting like takes the worst shots I've ever seen and could be a worst defender I've ever seen early rumblings. Like they're probably both overstated, but the fact that both of those narratives have come out, I don't love that as like the guy who Jim also. I tinker with Rutgers. I gave them another nudge up, and then I was like, dial back. Yeah.
The freshmen have to deliver. Yeah, right.
Yep.
Low teams, we can speed through them. They're not as many. We didn't have a whole lot of like standout low teams. Well, Matt did. Matt, Illinois 56, which we talked about. Kentucky 35, Matt. I'm surprised you had them so low.
Too low. No, it's too low. This is my biggest wish.
You love Mark Pope. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, for the record, I have 10 teams with the same rating, and Kentucky was just sort of at this. So I mean, this should be a top 25-ish team, I think. Fringe top 25. Now you can argue, is it more middle teens, like 15-ish, or is it more like 25th-ish? Like I'm more closer to the latter. I really just don't love that backcourt. We'll see how it shakes out. I think it's a conundrum of Mark Pope's system doesn't really require a ton of like dynamic backcourt play. Like the guards just have to play off of the bigs and how they operate. I still think you need good guards. And I still think the BYU guards he had were slightly underrated. I feel like people are sort of like, Dowd Hall's he's nothing. He was just a Mark Pope system.
He has
but now he heard
Jackson Robinson.
Jackson Robinson.
Yeah, he's a shooter though. He's not a crazy shooter. He's not a setup guy. He's not a table setter. I think the table setter thing is important. That's why Dowd Hall was so special last year.
I think there's a chance we'd say Lamont Butler is better this year than Dallin Hall was last year.
Different player.
Much more shooting around him. I think he can break down defense a little bit. And he's not going to make 53s probably the way Dallin Hall did, but I think he can have a 28% assist rate as the late shot clock create something for us guy.
Kerr Krissa is still a competent basketball player despite
the turnovers. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, Matt. Yeah. So you'd move Kentucky up. Okay.
Yeah, I did. And their bigs, I was sort of I've come around to the fact that Amari Williams could be an absolute monster in a new situation. Like him trying every game could be terrifying. Like the fact that I heard 3 separate CAA coaches say in post-game presser, like, yeah, Amari just kind of off tonight. I think we got lucky. He was dominant. Like 3 coaches were just like, what was that? Like when they played against him. So, but again, Kentucky different. I think he's probably going to come to play.
Yeah. Watching a Drexel game, you're like, oh, he just kind of takes plays off, doesn't he? Like it's literally just like, oh.
Other coaches see it like they actually game planned to like sort of like, prey on that when he was not locked in. But then when he was locked in, it was like, oh my God, we have no chance. We have to throw 2 guys at him. He's so big type of thing.
The thing I keep going back to, he's a really good passer, Amari Williams.
He's a good passer.
And you're going into that system where if you have a good passing big, it's unbelievable. Like he threw some backdoor stuff I was watching when previewing Kentucky. They had a couple clips of their scrimmage against the La Familia TBT team where he had, I think, 4 assists in the 1-minute highlight. They had a couple were touch passes, like catch it in the middle and immediately fan it out to a shooter in the corner. I think he's going to end up looking really good in that system.
Really, the only team I was like way lower on than my pals was Maryland at 55. I'm very okay with this ranking. I might be anchoring a little too much to last year, but I was disgusted by what I saw. I am not. I like Jacoby Gillespie coming in. I don't think he is Jameer Young good. I think he's probably a downgrade. Still not a lot of shooting, in my opinion. And their 5-star freshman's the center, Derek Queen. I kind of poo-poo that, to be honest. I think this team's more what it is. It's going to be a 40 to 60 ranked team in KenPom, in my opinion.
I don't hate it, Kai. I think that's fair.
Jim's teams, low teams, Cincinnati 28, not super low compared to me and Matt, who are very high on the Bearcats, but Jim at top 30 is not egregious. And St. Mary's at 49, maybe pretty low, especially considering where Randy Bennett has been the last couple of years. Your thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, Cincinnati, it just feels like a little bit of a lower ceiling team to me because it's like, all right, we got everybody back. Now we're going to elevate within their roles, and perhaps that happens. It could happen. A lot of guys were playing different roles last year, and I think when people get up in arms about the upside, they're like, oh, what about Jizzle James, freshman to sophomore leap? And I'm like, is he going to keep playing 20 minutes a game? How much of a change can he make for them playing that fringe amount? So we'll see. And maybe Dylan Mitchell is the guy that makes the impact. More Aziz at center. Last year, Victor Locken collapsed, and I saw some Cincy fans that were just like, even mentally, he was completely out of his sorts late in the year. So perhaps they've got a little more upside than I'm giving him. And St. Mary's, yeah, I have a hard time seeing them fall like outside the top 60. But I just don't think this is one of Bennett's best rosters. I think the backcourt is lacking any juice next to Gus, unless somebody has some crazy, crazy developmental leap. And front court just kind of is what it is. Solid, perhaps I'm low, but I think there's a massive, massive gap between them and Gonzaga.
Am I crazy? So St. Mary's is a guard this year, Jordan Ross. Wasn't that the name of their really good guard like several years
Jordan
ago?
Ford.
Jordan Ford.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking of. Jordan Ford.
I think
Okay.
the St. Mary's fans will say that they like this is actually one of the more talented teams. Like Ross is a former 4-star. They have, I think, 3 in that sophomore class that are like basically in that top 100 on the cusp range. But maybe one of those guys pops, but that's sort of, I think St. Mary's fans will say we're discounting the talent because it just hasn't shown on the floor yet. Yeah. It's actually the pedigree's actually there. Okay, fine. It's more of a developmental system. It's not like a come out and set the world on fire as a freshman or sophomore system.
Yeah. Wasn't Jabe Mullins a top 100 recruit at St. Mary's? And then he went and got buried at Washington State. And I don't know.
They just can't be bad on defense with Saxon, in my opinion. 4 straight top 15 years. Maybe their offense lags, though.
And Wessels, too. Yeah, they won't be bad on defense.
Okay, Matt. Well, we're going to move on to what will we change. Okay, so kind of the same, not really the same categories just did. I don't know Matt's yet, so I'll just do mine first, and Matt can kind of think on the fly here. I mentioned Arkansas. I would move them down. I had them 14. Just looking back at this team a few times, I'm a little high. I'm really banking a lot on the pedigree of these players. Your DJ Wagner's, for instance, and projecting too many guys to, I think, take a pretty big leap. And I don't think Calipari is what he used to be in terms of X's and O's development, running teams outside of recruiting. So I would move down Arkansas if I had to.
At least he can consult with Kenny Payne on the sideline now.
And that's another reason, Jim. He brought Kenny Payne onto the staff. That's just I understand they're friends. What are you doing? Like, let's give that guy a year
Al
off.
He's got like a gate it separates. Payne cannot walk into like the whiteboard schematic room. Like he's just not. It's like you have a dog who can't go in the outside part of the fence. You just rope in. Like you're not allowed in this area. Everything else is off limits for you. You can stay over here and have your fun and hang out with people and whatever. But no.
Anyways, I mentioned SLU, probably down a little bit. 2 teams I'd move up a bit. BYU, I had them 61. A little too low. I don't think they're going to come close to what they were last year. They're 18th in KenPom. But this team is very talented. They have a lot back. Kevin Young could be a really good coach. He's going to run a modern style offense, and he has plenty of shooting and guard play to do it. So I think they could be way better than where I have them, somewhere in the 30-35 range perhaps. Iowa, also a team that I'm really starting to like because I keep looking back at the roster over and over again. Top 10 offense is very much in the realm of possibilities here. Defense is never going to be good. That's just Fran McCaffrey, and they lose Tony Perkins. But Owen Freeman could be an NBA player. Sanford and Dick's going to be really good. Iowa is a team I'd probably move up from 53.
Yeah, the BYU one was one. We've got a couple people in the chat that are super high on them, or in the Discord. I believe one guy, Kyle, had them 12th or so, and that was kind of like, wow, are we? That's really far apart in the preseason, I guess. So that gave me some second thought. But I've said, I think there's some parts that they had last year that they don't have this year that made them unique, like Khalifa's passing, Robinson's volume shooting. So we'll see.
Even Tom Crean mentioned Khalifa's passing to Matt in the Discord interview. This coaches saw it. Ali Khalifa. Let's go to Jim. High and low. Or excuse me, what would you change?
Yeah, I would definitely move Virginia down, even though I was the low guy. I think to get them where I had them or have them top 50, you have to kind of say good outcomes for almost everybody. So I think they're more kind of 50 to 60 range, while still being competitive every night just because of the system. I moved TCU down. Like I said, that was a team I was higher on, had them 31st. There's not a lot there, and it's a major style shift. They're just going to be thinner, more guard centric, and that's just not the identity that Jamie Dixon's had for years. So that should be kind of I need to see that identity work first before I make a real big case to have them lock top or lock NCAA tournament team again. So concern there. I'd move Rutgers down a tad. Like I said, I think I'm at the high end of outcomes for them right now, and maybe they get there. Maybe I should stick with it, but I think to be more reasonable, I would put them more 27th, narrowly outside the top 25. And I would have Nevada higher and San Diego State lower. I didn't even have Nevada in my top 75. Looking back at what they bring back and brought in, Alford's actually been really consistent in his tenure in the Mountain West across two different schools. So I'd have them in there. And then San Diego State, it just feels like maybe this is the year they do drop from consistent 20th or so, 25th, and fall out a little bit. So that was the team that got us or 50th in our countdown.
Mm-hmm.
I would have ended up knocking them out had I moved them down.
Oof. Fair enough, Jim. I'm still a believer in the Aztecs, but I agree with you on Nevada. After writing that preview, I was like, oh, this team's still good. Still going to be like tournament caliber team.
Yeah, Steve Alford might be on the Mount Rushmore of coaches that need a new PR campaign.
He's won pretty much everywhere he's been.
He didn't win at an elite level at
UCLA.
At UCLA, although he
like
did make a couple
year
deep
was only
runs.
Great when
right.
He had,
but yeah, I think he's like one of the top ATS coaches. Like if you just blindly bet Steve Alford for the last 10 years, I think it's like one of the highest ROIs of any coach. Not that that matters, but I think he is very, very underrated as a basketball coach.
He had Missouri State ranked 21st.
Never been better. Never been better than
in 1999. Yeah, he's won literally. He's taken 4 schools to the NCAA tournament. At
I think
level.
3 to the Sweet 16. Because Missouri State went to the Sweet 16, I think one of those years.
Yep.
I think 5 schools in the tournament.
5 schools in the tournament? Yeah. It's
Nevada, UCLA, New Mexico, Iowa, Missouri State.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people or coaches that have done that. That's pretty impressive. Right.
Well, why has he been at 5 different schools?
There it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Matt, anything you would change? Coach. We've discussed a few years already, but
many things. I think just in general, this is a lot of the discussion that we have in the Discord is like coaching first roster, and it's so hard to assess. Like, I think there's gonna be so many overreactions to results this year for last year and then this year that we're gonna say, oh, see, so and so is not a good coach, or look, so and so is a really good coach. And I think honestly, if you look back in 10 years from now, the last 3 seasons this year and maybe one more is going to be, we really wouldn't have learned a lot about your coach. I think it's a lot of it just luck of the draw. Who you got in the portal? Did they stick? Did the roster click? And so I just think it's a perfect placemat for just insane overreactions. When in reality, maybe you just got some bad dudes that didn't play well together, or you got a couple guys that, again, some of that falls on the coach for sure. But I think a lot of the noise is going to distort people's perspectives of who's a good coach, who's not. And I'm trying to ground myself in the middle with some of that stuff. So
yeah, unfortunately, it's a first take, hot take atmosphere environment we live in, where it's like every last thing. That's my new opinion on this team. You just lost last game, you're bad. You just won, you're good, and it's going to be like that for the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, we got to stay grounded, Matthew, as you said.
Yep, yes, we do.
Let's finish off the show with a little honorable mention discussion. So teams around the fringe. Maybe we have a bone to pick or no bones to pick or bones to give certain teams. Kai, that's me. I'm disgusted by Matt and Jim's lack of voting for Clemson. I don't even think you guys had them in the top 75, if I'm not mistaken, or at least barely.
I bumped them up too. No, I agree. I think Trilly actually, what you and Trilly kind of both double clicking that for me and saying, hey, Brad Brownell, has he ever been bad or has he ever underachieved? Like, he hasn't underachieved in years. Like, he hasn't, I actually say last year he overachieved, but all he does is slightly overachieve. That's all he does. That is his MO. He achieves.
Yes, I agreed. Yeah, I'm still high on this Clemson team despite the PJ Hall loss. I think Chase Hunter is still really, really good point guard, very underrated. And Ian Shefflin, I'm a pretty big fan of in terms of what he does in his role. What's that? Yeah, the chef Meister. He's no PJ Hall. He's not. But I think this team can still be really, really good.
I ranked them 67th, Kai. I did
Oh,
have
okay.
them in there.
Good.
And in 3 of the last 5 years, 68th, 71st, 72nd for Brownell. So I don't think I'm going crazy. I think last year was the positive end outlier for Mr. Brownell.
Stretch the sample size out. Stretch it out.
Now you get down to 84th, 112th, 82nd.
3 and 8th, 3 out of 8.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my bone to pick. I like Clemson a lot. I had them top 40, I think, this year, or top 50, whatever it was. Yeah, Matt, Wisconsin, you had number 44. They did not make our top 50.
That's a big leap of faith on the Badgers.
Is it?
Yeah,
is it just system? Is it guard? Is it great guard being consistent?
Like Wisconsin, like I think it's weird. It's sort of I've tried to flip that on its head. It's like we're sure Wisconsin's not going to be top 50. Like we're certain of that. Like I don't know. They're always pretty good. I know their guards were questionable. I kind of like Cam Hunter. The more I've thought about it,
He just hasn't played.
Big Ten.
He hasn't played.
Clearly, he hasn't. Yeah, hasn't played in a year, and I don't know. Will he be ready for the start of the season? I think he's been playing right in this summer.
I don't know.
I think so.
But they got other. I think their other guards have been kind of over. Like I think I love Blackwell. I think their other. Who am I forgetting? Like Klesmet and
Blackwell's the swing piece.
Crowell.
Klesmet.
Hey, how about Stephen Crowell? There you go. I think he's good.
Stephen Crowell, nice player.
Nice player.
Nolan Winter, Jim. We like Nolan Winter, don't we? Don't we love Nolan Winter?
I think Nolan Winter sucks.
Okay.
I thought he was so bad last year.
How about Kamari McGee? No, not a fan of him. Okay.
Good ball pressure defensively. I think Wisconsin fans like the grit he provides, but
good.
Basically,
that's why Kai, out of pure grit, they will be the number 50th team in college basketball this year. That is my prediction.
I mean, I don't think.
Gotta say,
go ahead, Matt.
Cam Hunter didn't play last year. He also hasn't played for a top 315 team.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, not like UCA Bears were exactly setting the world on fire down there in the A-Sun. Very fair point. But big numbers down there. Big numbers.
I don't think they'll fall to like 100. I don't. I think his floor is pretty high. Like 70 is his worst team. I think that's probably their floor this season.
Yeah, I mean they were kind of bad, I would say, 2 years ago. Like it's funny, Wisconsin can look worse than they actually are sometimes. So you sort of
Virginia,
like Virginia, when they look bad, they look really bad. Same thing with Wisconsin.
Jim, you want to go to bat for Notre Dame?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to twist your guys' arm to say get Notre Dame in the top 50, but I wish I'd pushed the chips in even a little further. Basically, Kai, where you had Clemson, I should have had Notre Dame right up there, snuck them into our 51 through 60. I just think the team's going to rock. There's the internal development, second year with Shrewsbury. I think Alako is such a perfect fit in the same way that Langborg was to Northwestern last year and really helped their backcourt. I'm a fan. I'm a really big fan of Notre Dame this year with how well they're going to be coached and the elevation of the sophomore backcourt with Burton and Shrewsbury.
This is one I kind of see. This could be like a Virginia-esque last year where Notre Dame wins a lot of games in the ACC, but finishes 60 to 70 in Ken Pom, something like that. I just think Shrewsbury is that good, and I agree. The talent upside, which is weird to say because last year on paper preseason the talent was well, what are we doing here, Shrewsbury? But now it looks pretty good. So I agree. I'm also high on the Irish this year. Yes, people laughed at us for having Villanova in the top 60. The hate's gone a little bit too far. Kyle Neptune, I don't think he's a good coach at all. Yes, he definitely way underperformed his talent last year. He has not shown us anything at Villanova. However, this team has a little too much talent to be considered bottom, behind DePaul and Georgetown, for instance, where people have had them in the Big East. That's a really big bridge too far. I think I tallied DePaul's record in the Big East last 5 years. It's 11-79. Villanova's not doing that. Even Neptune's floor is 60-70, I think, for this team.
They were 10-10 in the league last year. They lost at home to Creighton by 2. They lost to UConn by 1. They lost in double OT at Butler, lost at Xavier by 3, and then they lost to K-State because K-State's the overtime overlords by 1-2. So
they beat North Carolina.
They beat UNC in was that Atlantis, I think.
They won at Creighton.
Yeah, that's right. They won Atlantis. This team was not horrible last year. It was frustratingly underachieving, but it was not horrible. to think this year's roster has like categorically less talent than last year, I think you're really fixating on the Neptune hate if you think they're like not a top 75 team. It's gone too far for me.
We've said last year was like top 10 roster. It does have categorically less talent than a top 10 roster.
Definitely
doesn't it?
I
less
think this is
talent.
top 25 talent this year. No, is that too far?
No,
I
I
think
don't.
that's crazy.
No, I don't think so. I think you
I think
got
they have two really good players, and then it's
Yeah,
I don't know.
Man,
you
okay,
have one.
yeah.
You have one great player in Dixon. I think Poplar could be a good player. Then it's a lot of question marks, but I think those two guys are good enough to have this team like
That's
top
fair. Okay.
75-ish, right?
I will say I'm higher on like all the players they brought in, but fair. It is still categorically less talented. Like I love Brickus and I love Perkins, but we'll see. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
just higher on
I
those
saw
guys.
Jameer Brickus like top 5 transfer in the Big East. No, not even close. Like
I'm not a Brickus
I
guy.
think he's really good.
he's never been on a good team, like ever. Well, he's never been on a good team. I know they
Yeah,
beat
he's
Villanova, but
yeah, and he's supposed to be. Or he was well coached, and I don't
Yeah.
know, just
not
team
efficient.
still wasn't good.
He's
He had a good coach and two guys that went high major. Why weren't they good?
Should we have ranked Grand Canyon? They got a lot of love in the Discord for us not ranking them. Iowa, Nebraska, Matt's best team, or VCU. Grand Canyon, I think the argument there for us is they're at their peak. They do bring basically everybody back. They have Grant Foster back, but how much more can they really ascend? Is this going to be like a Wofford type of team, for instance, that gets all the way up into like the top 20? I'm not sure I'd go that far. So I'm okay with where we rank them. We have them 51, by the way. They just missed the cut. So I think that's pretty fair where we ranked Grand Canyon.
Yeah, they feel a little maxed out.
Maxed out.
And I don't love the Coles fit. It's just he left TCU for more touches, and you're not getting them next to Grant
right.
Foster. So I actually think it was responsible. I might even move them down 5 to 10 spots and be more in line with you guys on Grand Canyon.
Iowa, I mentioned I would move them up for sure. I'd probably have them a top 50 team if redoing my ranks. Nebraska, Matt, you still like Hoiberg and the boys?
Yeah, I do. I know it was a bad ending last year. Oof, that was a tough tournament showing there. Just got completely boat raced. But I mean, A&M was on fire at that point. A&M basically was playing like a top 10 team. Yeah, worried about the whole rink mast, kind of a massive part of last year's team. Not there this year, but I'm a Braxton Mia guy. Anyone who played big at Fresno, I have to be a fan of. Their big brigade is really funny to me. Like Andrew Morgan, Braxton Mia, Burke from UCLA trying to do his reclamation project. So if like among those 3 dudes, 1 is decent or 2 are decent, I think Hoiberg can kind of still play the same way in a sense that he did last year. Now Mass is just way better than those guys, but I think they can replicate some of that. And they're just really deep too. Very deep team.
VCU, Jim, is what we're going to end on because you like VCU. Should we have had them top 50? Top 50?
I think they're better than SLU.
Better than
top
SLU.
50.
Wow.
Yeah. I will be picking them to win the A10 in the A10 preview that will come out in the Discord. So if you want to read why, you'll have to subscribe. Yeah, I love the backcourt. I think they got a lot better when Bamisile started playing, and I think Odom is good enough to not let Bamisile do crazy Bamisile things. They'll miss Luwal, but I think the coaching plus mega talent in the backcourt, a little bit of year-over-year consistency for them, given the return of Zeb Jackson as well. Yeah, I'm in on the Rams. I think they're going to be really good.
Yeah, I'll almost certainly have SLU, VCU, and Dayton like neck and neck in my ratings.
Loyola.
Yeah, I'll probably have them a little behind Loyola.
Your boy Justin Moore playing point guard, everyone's favorite point guard.
Yeah, I think that's a huge mistake.
I know.
Drew's really good at bringing in like transfers that make sense. Justin Moore makes no sense in my opinion. So I think that was probably a mistake.
They needed a point guard. They got the wrong one. That's my 2 cents.
I would agree with that. Yes. Yeah. Anyways. Okay. Hey, thanks for joining us on this early morning. Wow, I love Thursday morning podcasts.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I work from home today too, so it's great. I don't have to commute to the office. Join us next week. What is next week? Well, it's mid-major extravaganza. Yeah, we're going to talk about the other leagues. We're going to go deep. Well, as deep as we can. Frankly, I haven't looked at a lot of these leagues yet, so I got to bone up on these teams. Pause. We will talk about the mid-majors who can steal bids, the mid-majors that will scare teams in the tournament. So tune in next week for that. One more time, join the Discord, please. The link is in the YouTube description and the podcast description as well. Subscribe on YouTube. Be good. We will see you next week. Enjoy your Labor Day. Cheers.